Welcome into the Irish NFL show. Looking forward to Sunday's big clash at Tottenham. The Buffalo Bills are in town, and Phoebe Schecter is in town. Last seen in Temple Bar with the Irish NFL show in Dublin when we did our live show. Phoebe, fantastic to have you back on the show.
It's so great to be back. And I loved that live show. It was that place is incredible, first off. Like, I would want to be there every Sunday watching any game going on, but always a pleasure to speak with my Irish fellows.
Yeah, shout out to Buskers on the Ball. Obviously, they're in our corner. They are our sponsor. They have been partnered with the show for the season. Me and Colin recorded the podcast in there last week. It was great to be back in there. Yeah, it was a great event. It was a great evening, and we were previewing the season. And Phoebe, you had called out that night that you were really strong on the Bills, and arguably they are the best team in the league right now. You could suggest they should have won that Jets game. They kind of threw it away at the end. The nature of how the game ended, but they've been really impressive since then. That win in Washington in particular, how strong the defense was. And obviously last week they go and put 48 points. Would you argue they're the best team in the league right now, especially in the AFC?
I think definitely in the AFC. I mean, they've got some competitors over in the NFC. I mean, 49ers, nobody can deny them. Cowboys will be interesting to see where they sit after this weekend, after such a big game. I mean, that's going to be so telling. But the Buffalo Bills are a team that have been going from strength to strength, absolutely defensively, like you've said, but also just in the growth and development of the relationship between Josh Allen, Ken Dorsey, the way they're utilizing the run game. I think that's just made such a difference. And your Josh just doesn't look like he's in a place where he's constantly having to put the team on his shoulders and make these crazy plays. So it's all kind of smooth chipping away at the moment.
Do you think it's settled down from where we were last season, where people were suggesting the Brian Dable factor in terms of him leaving and the relationship they had? Like this season, with maybe the exception of the first game, he seems to be a bit more controlled and measured. You just done it there. He's not having that many interceptions, but he seems to, I wouldn't say he's changed his game because he's still as expansive. He's got the players there offensively. But the nature of how he's playing at the moment, I mean, he's not running freely as he was. Like, we're not seeing him put up these massive numbers of 70, 80 yards. And maybe Cook, the running back, is helping in that situation.
Yeah, and I think it's probably a combination of stuff, right? I think there's always going to be, Dable was pretty much his OC from the beginning when he came into the league, and you build that connection and camaraderie, and someone understands you, and you get to a point where now someone new is coming to your life, and even though Ken Dorsey had been in the building, it's still a very different relationship that you then have to develop, an understanding of, well, okay, in this situation, I know Dable's going to call this, but actually in this situation, Dorsey might call this, and so I think there's that piece of it, which naturally comes. We've seen that a lot with a bunch of quarterbacks across the league, just those kind of getting used to each other, baby steps that's happens. But I genuinely think that like you said, the addition of, or the explosion, I should say, of James Cook has really changed the game. I mean, yeah, you've got Latavius Murray, you've got some other backs in there, but it alleviates what would have had to have been Josh's rushing yards in the past. Now he's got the capability of handing the ball off and allowing his players to do the work for him. And that's kind of what they've been missing. The offensive line has been firing on all cylinders. I mean, Deion Dawkins has had some of the best games at left tackle that he's had throughout his career. So it's kind of all the pieces of the puzzle coming together. It's just, we're only going into week 5, right? I mean, we've got so much left of football to play. And I think a lot of that is going to come down to can this team still build towards the end of the season, and can they be peaking at the end of the season, right? I mean, great work happens now, great foundations are laid now, but it's what happens after Thanksgiving and into December time that's really paramount.
So we talked about the Ken Dorsey, Brian Dable effect. One of the bigger moves that the Bills made in the offseason was Leslie Frazier stepped away and Sean McDermott took over the play calling. And obviously, you look at last week against the Dolphins, against that high-powered offense, and they were able to keep them contained. What have you seen in terms of differences between their styles of play calling and the way the defense has been set up each week?
It was interesting to watch that game because there was pressure coming from everywhere, right? The big conversation going into that is Tua throws the ball in 2.36 seconds, I want to say it is. And it takes somebody who's rushing to get there. It takes about 2.5 seconds. So he's already releasing the football before you even can get to him, which can be rather frustrating as a defensive lineman. And so what things that they did really nicely was that kind of inside pressure, getting those guys kind of into Tua's face really quite quickly. There were some opportunities where I think it was not going into we're at the end of the first half. There were a couple times that Tua actually double clutched, and we've not even seen him do that for a while, because some of that conversation is, all right, if you force Tua to double clutch the football, is that just opening up more windows because you've got so much speed, and if your receivers get that separation? And that's where Waddle had that great catch that happened off of a tip, right? And that was that first double clutch. But actually by the end of it, the DBs were able to drive on that. And so, I think Coach McDermott is probably a bit more aggressive in his play calling. They kind of came into the game, they had some corner blitzes. Tre'Davious White was getting in the backfield. They had some automatic kind of clicks like that. Some great plays by AJ Epinesa, who got a hand in, on the screens, because ultimately what makes the Dolphins so great is they do the simple things well. And they window dress it and they make it look incredible, but actually it's still just your basic plays. It's a jet motion. It's a swing pass. It's whatever that is for you. And so, if the defense were able to maintain their rules and trust what they see, then that was a big part of what happened on Sunday.
Phoebe, there's great excitement about this game on Sunday, obviously with the Bills in town. And the Jags have been here for the past 10 days, obviously they played here last Sunday. And over the course of the last 15 years with the UK games, one of the biggest talking points was when the teams arrive. It used to be they'd come out as early as Tuesday, spend the week. I think as years have evolved, they've come Friday, arrive Friday morning. Essentially, they're gone out of Stansted Airport on Sunday night. This is the first time we've had a situation where the team playing this Sunday as the road team have played the previous week in London. Do you think, how much of a bearing do you think this is going to have in the game? Do you think we could see a scenario where the Jags start hot and the Bills have to catch up, or will we see lightning in a bottle type of stuff from the Bills like we have done over the past 2 weeks?
I think, you bring up a really great point, because it's not something we've seen before. And we've seen it both ways, right? Where teams do come early in the week, or where they just come on the Friday. So Bills will get here on the Friday morning. But I think it gives the Jags an advantage. I think, it's one thing if you're coming in on a Monday or Tuesday and you're here for a couple of days, but now you're here for a full 2 weeks. Yes, the facility is different. You've gone from Wembley to Tottenham, but still you're acclimated to the temperature, to the atmosphere, to whatever that looks like for you, right? You're in a routine over here. You're more acclimated to the time schedule, because you have to remember, all right, let's say you're coming from the States, it's a 5-hour time difference. Well, you might be wide awake as a player at 1 a.m., but then you have to get up nice and early. Whereas the Jags have had this time to really get into the swing of things. But I don't think we've ever really seen a situation where the Bills haven't been that lightning in a bottle, right? I think by the Jags staying here, it's going to make this game even more exciting. It's going to make it, we're going to see those big plays, because Jags are in a much more comfortable place. And that's kind of also who the Bills are. So I hope for all of us that this is a really exciting game, and one that we can kind of remember forever, because I remember it from the 2015 when they played each other back in the day. That was my first NFL game. So to go from that and that style of play to now seeing two incredibly accurate and explosive quarterbacks, what more could we want as fans of the sport?
That's it. I was in the stands for that game. That was EJ Manuel just throwing it to Jacksonville players right, left, and center. And Alan Hurd's diving touchdown at the end. I remember I was going crazy. Looking at the spread, obviously the Bills are massive favorites. There's a 5.5 point spread on it. What do you think is going to be the key for Jacksonville in terms of maybe they are acclimated and they've not got jet lag on it? And you look at last week's game, and it felt like they did enough to beat the Falcons. They took away the running game. They asked Desmond Ridder to throw, and that's where the Falcons struggled. What do you think is going to be the key, and who do you think the players are that really have got to step up for it? Obviously, looking, Zay Jones is questionable. There's going to be a couple of guys who aren't going to be able to go. But who do you think the key players are on the Jacksonville side?
I mean, I think ultimately, like the Falcons were able to take Calvin Ridley out of the picture, and then he just opened up to his other receivers, right? He was able to, you take one guy away, and he's got a couple other ones that are very talented. I think the biggest thing is going to be it's about Trevor Lawrence in this situation because it has to be about his accuracy. Over the past couple of weeks, we've seen him make some questionable throws when it comes to accuracy. Thinking back to 3 weeks ago now, looking at the back of the end zone, every ball was just a little bit too high, despite his players being in the right position. Christian Kirk has been a great player from over the past couple of years, someone he feels really comfortable with. So, perhaps attacking that kind of Dane Jackson side, right? Number 30, who came in and filled in for Tre'Davious White. That was kind of what the Dolphins did too. They attacked him a little bit. But Trevor Lawrence, I think, needs to be in a place where he's comfortable and not just releasing that football. There are a couple times that he just released it too quickly without, I think, proper thought behind it. And so, for him, making sure he's got a clean pocket, trusting his O-line, that he can step up if he needs to. And I just think he needs to kind of build his confidence throughout this game. And obviously, Etienne has been phenomenal. Put the ball in his hands when you need it, because I'm also really interested. This is a Bills home game. And I know that our fans are incredible and every jersey is supported, but there is a deep love within people at the idea of being part of Bills Mafia. So could it be like we saw last year with Green Bay, where everyone just was so excited for Green Bay? Could that be what we experienced this weekend with Buffalo?
Are you expecting people to bring tables into the car parks and just jump through them, and it's just going to go nuts outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
Yeah, down the streets of Tottenham with fold-up tables.
Yeah.
I was wondering why Andrew was putting those fold-up tables in the car. That was the photograph he sent me today. Now I know why.
Now it makes sense. We need the ketchup and mustard for you guys. Yeah, I'll squirt it on you guys, ketchup and mustard, and then you'll be good to go.
I was going to wear my good blazer on Sunday. I might have to give that a miss.
I bought a new pair of shoes, especially for the weekend. So, this is not going to go well for me.
No.
You spoke about the Bills Mafia. There is great excitement around the game. And obviously the following week, we're blessed because we have Lamar Jackson the following week with the Ravens. And John Harbaugh has been, I'm not going to say opposed, but he wasn't really too overly keen on the last experience in the UK, where the Bills seem to be kind of thriving on the fact that they're coming over. Is that the feel you get with the Bills? Is great excitement in the lead up to this? There's a lot of podcasts out there, Bills fans traveling over, looking forward to the experience, where the Ravens previously weren't. It'd be interesting to see what it's going to be like this week as opposed to next week in terms of how the head coaches do their nature of their press conferences when they're over in London.
Yeah, I mean, there's still an element of unknown, right? And to be fair, I'd say NFL UK are doing a better job year in and year out of just creating the standard that kind of NFL teams expect. Because we have to remember, our NFL team here, it's not their normal everyday job that they're putting on an NFL game, right? So there's a lot of learning that comes with this. But I would say, ultimately coaches want to be in control of everything. They want every detail controlled. They want zero distractions. So you can understand, well, now we got to think about flying. I got to keep these people contained. How do we manage all of this? But actually, I know they'll love it when they're over here. And again, like the crowd, the excitement, the noise, and everyone trying to make it feel as home for them as possible. So yeah, two teams kind of approaching it differently, but I think there's still kind of beauty and benefits within both ways.
So I wanted to just come away from the game, really just pick your brain a little bit, Phoebe, from the start of the season on Sky Sports. I haven't prepped you on this at all, so I'm throwing you 4 weeks ago, you were in Pittsburgh, season kickoff, and you look at the Steelers, and that was a team that really have disappointed over the first month. If you were having a little think about other examples of narratives that have just blown up and been reduced to nothing, or things that you were hoping for and have just disappointed, that would probably be the first thing that springs to my mind. I remember that pregame, it was loud, it was noisy, you couldn't even hear Neil Reynolds stood next to you, and then it just dissipated. Is there anything else in the league year this year that surprised you or disappointed you almost?
Yeah, I'd say from like a disappointment perspective, I mean, disappointment only because you look at the team and you think, okay, you guys have potential. I mean, the the Bears situation, I think it's hard not to look at them and think, well, you've got Justin Fields. They've had so many obstacles. They've really kind of made a rod for their own back in a lot of ways throughout the season going into week 5. Um, that's been, I think, frustrating for a lot of people to watch. And then you look at the game, the game versus the Broncos as well. I mean, the Broncos, another team who've had some really high highs and then some really low lows in such a period of time. I mean, the way that Miami kind of battered them, you thought coming the game afterwards that they would have been able to kind of rally, pull it together, and they just couldn't close it. And you bring in a head coach like Sean Payton, who arguably one of the best kind of in the league in terms of his history. But then you've got this narrative around, well, but he's been paid. Does he really care? I think ultimately, as a head coach, you are going to care because it's your name, it's your reputation, and you want to do the best for your organization. And I know the Broncos are really thrilled to have him there, and he can make a difference. But I just would have expected a little bit more at this point in the season. And they've had a couple get right games, really for both teams, Bears and I could throw Panthers in there as well if we want. Bears, Panthers, and Broncos. They've had a couple get right games. They've just not really capitalized on. So I'd say those are my negatives. I'd say my positive would be the Rams, though. I mean, how great is Puka Nacua?
Brilliant. For a 5th-round pick. Well, look, this is the nature. There's always a 5th-round pick. We saw it last year with Trey Woolen on the defensive side. There's always this gem that they find. Matthew Stafford looks re-energized, Phoebe, the way he's playing at the moment.
Yeah, and it's nice. I think I was reading a stat the other day about how Puka Nacua is Stafford's first read on something like 45% of his throws. I mean, for a 5th-round rookie, that's incredible. And then for him to get his first touchdown, that's just so exciting. But I mean, that team and I think I think what's really interesting about the NFL is you feel so much like you live in the moment. From like when we're here either talking about it, we ride the roller coaster that is the NFL. And sometimes we need to step back and look because yes, the Rams did not have a great season last year. Everyone is super aware. But before that, they're out there winning Super Bowls, right? So, you have a head coach who can get you there, who's built that team before. They've got a lot of young players, a lot of young talent. You still have Aaron Donald, arguably still one of the best in the league at his position. So you've got a lot of the right puzzle pieces and you've got the right mind leading and driving you. And I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that.
Phoebe, this question is about the Bengals, but it also ties into the Bills because I would argue the Bills are probably seeing this now as a great window of opportunity. The Bengals are struggling. It's evident that Joe Burrow clearly isn't right since the injury in training camp. They've got Arizona this weekend, but then the next 3 games are daunting. They play Seattle, they play the 49ers, and then they play the Bills. Bearing in mind, even at the live show in August where people were asking questions of you around, is it the Bengals' window of opportunity to get back to the championship game? And you kind of touched on, let's not discount the Bills. Will the Bills be looking at this? Bearing in mind, even we suggested that the Jets will take all the pressure off because of all the hype. Now the Bills are looking at this. We're red hot. We could end up back in the championship game, certainly the playoffs. And maybe it won't be the Bengals who are like the marquee team. Do you think that's even relevant right now? Or do you think they just continue doing what they're doing and see where they are come the AFC seeding come December?
Yeah, knowing the Bills' mindset, it's always going to be that one game at a time. That's all we can focus on. The building is surrounded in, playoff championship caliber. Like that is the goal ultimately, getting to the Super Bowl. And I think there's naturally that daily reminder of where you are because you want that clear vision of what we want to get to. But I think ultimately they're always going to feel like we're going to have to see the Chiefs, right? We're going to have to play the Chiefs, and the Bengals were always a stepping stone. Granted, Bengals obviously came and took care of business in Buffalo last year. So, but again, I think it comes back to like the original conversation where we're going to week 5. We're now talking about week 16, 17, whatever that looks like, right? What do the Bengals look like then? Because we've seen them start slowly or poorly before. I'm not saying there's going to be some miraculous turnaround, but they have the potential to still be a high competitor. And again, Bills are going to have to meet the Dolphins again, and that's McDaniel is an offensive mastermind, and he's not going to let the same thing happen twice, right? So that will be a really interesting rematch down in Florida, what that looks like. So, divisionally, you've got that kind of inner turmoil and battle. Then you have to look, bigger picture. If it is the Bengals, if it's not, the Chiefs are probably going to be there no matter what, and you have to knock through that door.
Definitely. I've got one more question that I'd like to ask, and I'd like to try and draw the veil back on the coaching and the behind the scenes. You talked about how coaches want to make things perfect. I remember when you came back from Buffalo, you talked to me about how you were in charge of the wristband, and then you had to marry up the play sheet that changed like an hour before the game to the wristband and panic to get it all right and all that kind of stuff. For the listeners, can you just give us an idea of what it's like and some things that you would have to do in that pregame that we don't always see, and we've got our merchandise and we're just looking in the program at the notes and all that kind of stuff. We're really excited. Can you take us behind the scenes and just let us know the kind of things that you guys have to do when you're coaching in the NFL to get the players ready for that kickoff?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of starts the night before, right? I mean, it starts the whole week before. But the night before, we'll collect in our quizzes. So the players all get quizzes that they fill out, about the game, about their opponent. So we collect them in. We talk about the results, essentially. We go over as a team our goals, our vision. It's quite motivational. You get pretty excited about it. We in the morning, then you wake up, you have your breakfast. There's 3 different bus times that get you to the stadium, depending on when you want to be there and the type of player you are as well. Some like a slow start. And once you get there, it's all about getting set up. So for myself in my role, obviously, first off, I have to find a changing room. As a girl, it's becoming a bit more common now, but they're definitely hard to come by at times. So, the clothes are all laid out, right? Our equipment team are there first thing from the day before. So you go into your changing room, all your stuff is laid out for the game, different weather options as well. That's why everyone always looks the same. It looks really smart. And then myself and at the time, John Agarugu, who's now with the Bills, with the Giants as their linebackers coach, we would go up to the box together. That was kind of always our pregame. We go up to the box and you test your headsets. You get your Surface out. You get all your notes out. So I will have printed out, basically blank lined pages essentially where I'm going to write down what the down and distance is, what the hash is, result of play, the defense that's being shown, all of that. So you pretty much are prepping all of that. All the coaches like to do it in their own method. And then once you've got everything laid out, ready that you're going to need for the game time, Coach Agarugu and I would then go over personnel grouping. So we would quiz each other. What does the Ravens 11 package look like? Who are the numbers? Or like, hey, 87, 86, and 11. What personnel package is that? So you start to do some pregame kind of getting your head locked into it. And then from there, we'll go down to the field. So the players at this point should be out. Some of them want you to throw around with them. Some of them need help stretching, whatever that looks like. And then you've got a little bit of a lull. So some of the coaches do their walks. I would always play a game because that's just kind of how I go. So we would play like the little 10 yards apart, throw the football. You got to get it in the square. 1 point. If you get it in the face, like it's 2 points. Just a little bit of fun. And it was a great way too, if you've got injured players, to include them. I always remember Trent Murphy was injured. He had hurt his knee. So he would get involved and play then. In that way, and it's just a way to get him a bit fun. And then from there, before you know it, the actual pregame is started. So you've got your setup as positional group. So tight ends, we would do the same drills, footwork drills, catching drills. Then you come together, you do your kind of pat and go. From there, you build into your like run blocking, you go into sevens, and then you kind of build and build and build. And then before you know it, when everyone runs into the locker room, us that are up in the box, we have to go run up to the box and just get ready. So I would take care of offensive play calls, special teams work, and it's all about collecting data and information because you're not allowed computers, right, in these spaces. So you take down whatever you've written and seen, and you bring it to the coaches at halftime, where based off of that is what you change your game plan on.
That sounds like a very detailed day itself before the game even starts. Phoebe, it's going to be
Yeah.
a great weekend. Finally, for us, we need to congratulate you for your nominee for the Changemaker Award, Sportswoman of the Year. We are truly blessed to have you on. You know, I should have said it at the start, but we have to acknowledge it's a great achievement. And look, the week that's in it, we know you're very busy. So to give up your time to come on the show, we're always greatly appreciative of your support to the Irish NFL
Thank
show.
you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phoebe.